There are many times in which you might find yourself wanting to shoot handheld, whether that's out of lack of gear, lack of space, or sometimes it's just simple convenience. If you find yourself wanting to shoot handheld, here are some tips and tricks that can make your shots much smoother. The first thing we want to consider is whether or not we want the shot to feel handheld. That is, do we want to feel the shake? That can be a very raw quality, and it can be very effective when used properly. But let's assume you don't. Let's assume that you want your footage to feel very smooth. Let's start with some tips and tricks on how we can help you achieve that. First, one of the biggest things you can do when trying to shoot handheld is to use an IS or image stabilized lens whenever possible. Here I have our favorite IS lens, the 24-105, and you want to have the image stabilizer on. That, in conjunction with using two hands and spreading it across the camera body, one on the lens, one on the body, and keeping it close to your body, means that you're going to get pretty solid footage. There's a big difference if you hold the camera here versus out here like this. From there, if you have a camera strap, you can attach that and you'll go from 2 contact points, my hands, to 3 with the camera strap on my neck. We don't use camera straps. Instead, we prefer the Zacuto Z-Finder. So when I pop this on, now I have 3 contact points. And that relates to my next tip, which is you want to avoid racking focus whenever possible when you're shooting handheld. If I was holding the camera out here, and I'm trying to rack focus, you can see it's almost like one contact point and the camera starts shaking a bit. Now, the exception to that is in using a Z-Finder. When you use a Z-Finder, now we have 3 contact points. And now it's a lot easier to rack focus and keep our shot. We still should be thinking of trying to get our shot in focus before we start rolling, and ideally we're going to make any changes in focus very minimal, because you are going to introduce shake whenever you try and move your hands around the camera. The next tip is to always try and shoot on the wider end of your lens and closer to your subject as opposed to the longer end. So here's a shot at 105 millimeters, and here's the same idea at 24 millimeters. You're going to notice how much more apparent the shake is at the longer end of your lens. So we always want to try and use 2 hands spread across the body, use a Z-Finder or a camera strap if we can, minimize the amount we're racking focus, and we're going to use the wide end of the lens. Together we're going to take that into the set and we're going to shoot an entire scene from start to finish without any camera supports, just to show you how effective these techniques can be. Now if you find yourself wanting to make the shot feel handheld, if you want to add that shake, the common mistake people make is to almost overdo or reverse these tips and shoot with one hand out here. But what that actually does is it can be too raw, too shaky, that it's hard for the viewer to actually take in the image and to watch it for too long. So what we almost want to do is keep shooting like this and just add a little bit of shake. So we're still trying to make it smooth and then we're actually adding it back in. For the documentary that we did, by bringing the camera in and walking with some of the players, we have some very effective shots following them handheld, and that was made as an intentional decision to propel the story. So just always remember that you can use handheld as an effective storytelling technique, or you can try to use these techniques to just make your footage that much smoother.